As a digital nomad, there are 5 mistakes that you can make that I would advise against making. And this will make your whole experience of traveling and being a digital nomad and growing a business a lot worse. And I'm speaking to this from experience. I've spent multiple years as a digital nomad. I have friends who've been digital nomads for like 7 or 8 years. So this is based on a lot of real life discussion and seeing what other digital nomads do wrong. So let's get into it. Digital nomad mistake number 1, not saving up money or having a source of income before you quit your job or you start being a digital nomad. You need to have either 12 months of income saved up if you have no income coming in online, because you'll need time to actually figure out how to make money online, or you need to be making a decent amount, a decent chunk of change already online before you quit your job or do anything crazy like that and start traveling. This seems like common sense, but a lot of people think that throwing themselves into a foreign country with no money is a good idea. That's not a good idea. There's that whole burn the bridges philosophy. Yeah, for some people it works out. Most of the time you're just gonna end up being broke. So I highly recommend that you actually have a real full-time income going, or at least a year of savings of money to just saved up so that you have time to build up whatever you want to build up. So that's mistake number 1. Okay, mistake number 2, don't join any of these remote travel and work group things like remote cheers, etc. Because usually from what I see, they're overpriced. You're traveling with a bunch of kind of people who are working 9 to 5s, and the people you're going to be surrounded with aren't exactly like real digital nomads that are trying to build a business or trying to do something for themselves. They're usually targeted at people who are already working for companies, very overpriced, and they usually do 1 month in a different city. So it's pretty much kind of like, people are working, but they're not working that intensely, and they're working for their 9 to 5 at home. Honestly, from what I've seen, of these people, it's not really that good of a group to be surrounded with. You want to just go out there and actually kind of live there on your own, not on some guided tour experience that costs a lot of money and is overpriced, right? Like that's something you do when you're a teenager and you go on some Kontiki tour. This is real life, right? Like we're talking about actually living in a country and learning the culture. So avoid those kind of groups, because you're just gonna spend too much money on a kind of experience that, in my opinion, is not being a real digital nomad. Mistake number 3 is traveling intensely when you don't have a stable business running. So here's the thing, you need stability and focus to build a business. So if you don't have a business running that's already earning you income, then sit down and get to work in one place. Now here's the thing, you could either do this in your hometown, or do what I did, which is go to another city in another country, live in another country for a year, year and a half, build your business there, and then you can start traveling more intensely when you have a stable business. But then, when you're in one spot, you can take short trips to other places, but it does allow you the stability to grow, because you cannot have the stability to do hardcore, intense work if you're just moving from place to place within a month, because it usually takes around 2 weeks to actually become productive in a new location. So save yourself the trouble, at least spend 6 months in one spot. Otherwise, you're just gonna have very slow progress. And I mean, that's okay if you've got a good freelancing gig, you're making good money, and you don't really want to grow it. But if you actually want to increase your income significantly, you just have to sit down and work in one spot. And my suggestion is do it in a spot you like, in a tropical country where you can easily spend 6 to 12 months without too many visa issues. And you have maybe friends who are there as well, because that will just be a really great experience. You get to experience a new country without having to sacrifice your business necessarily. Number 4, so after you do have a stable business that kind of runs itself, you may want to alternate between periods of grinding and traveling. So what I'm doing right now is I've spent the last 3 months in Kiev, Ukraine, and I've been very productive here. I've been, especially with the time zone where my team is in the US time zone and I'm here, I basically have the first 6 to 7 hours of my workday to myself, where they don't hit me with Slack notifications, they don't need anything from me. I can just do really deep, high-level focused work. Meanwhile, while I was in the EST time zone, I would always just, as much as I tried, I couldn't stay out of the business. I couldn't stay out of helping people. Nowadays, I just, basically I'm way out of it, and I can actually do really high-level work that's moving the needle on the business and is helping the business significantly. So you want to have those few months of hard work and then maybe do a month or two of travel, and that way there's a nice balance of, you know, going from like working 50 hours a week for a few months where you're kind of just in grind mode, and then a few months of actually getting to kind of enjoy the digital nomad lifestyle per se. And then once it's really automated and you're happy with where the business is, I have friends that work 2-3 hours a week. I have a couple of friends like that. And you know, it's pretty cool. They work a couple hours a week, their money comes in, and they get to, you know, book a flight to wherever they want on a whim. So that's kind of like something you can get to eventually, but just understand that, you know, if you're in that intermediate phase where your business is running well, but there's still work that needs to be done, focus on sprints versus, you know, having like this overall thing where you're always kind of working, but not really working. Because in a good sprint of 2 to 3 months, you can get as much done as like 8 months of working less intensely. And then, you know, take 2 months off, or take 2 months where you're only working 10 hours a week, because sprints are more efficient, right? So the thing is, like, just sprinting month after month after month is way too much for me. So I like to do that method where I you know, I basically have different compartments for it, and I spend, you know, like 3 months hardcore work, 1.5 to 1 month chilling out. Last tip is don't work from home, go to a co-working space. It's way more productive. Like, I know there are a lot of people who like this whole working from home thing, but for me personally, unless you have a home where you've been living for years, it's usually hard to set up a good workspace in some new country that you're in, right? It's much easier to go to co-working space and immediately start working there and just have it as your haven of, you know, work. And the cool thing about co-working spaces is you can meet other like-minded people, you can meet other digital nomads, you can meet cool locals. It's usually like a really cool group of people at every co-working space. And that leads me to kind of a tangent, but if possible, try to travel with friends. If you have friends who are doing the digital nomad thing, coordinate with them and see what you can do together. And it's really cool once you can do that, because, you know, for example, me and my friend Sam, we were just talking about what we wanted to do for this winter, and we both agreed on, hey, we want to learn how to surf in Florianopolis in Brazil. And so now that's a real thing. The whole digital nomad thing can get lonely if you're by yourself in a new city with no friends. So try to have friends, and if you can't really meet people or you're kind of shy, go to your local co-working space and you'll be productive and you'll meet people. Obviously, for me, I think the best case scenario would be having kind of like my own office, which is completely private. But if you choose the right co-working space, you can be very productive. Like this co-working space, Lift 99, is pretty awesome. It's pretty quiet, and I'm just able to just knock out work very easily here. So shout out to Lift 99 for being great. But yeah, that's my last tip, and hopefully that gives you 5, you know, mistakes to avoid, so you can kind of have an idea of what to do with your digital nomad thing. As I mentioned, though, this lifestyle is a lot of fun, but it does require work. Like, you can't just expect it to be like traveling all the time with no, you know, pain. You know, I put in 50 hours work weeks quite often, but then I know that will lead to the outcome of in the future where I work 10 hours a week consistently for 6 months, which is kind of my end goal, is basically come into the co-working for a couple hours, you know, do some high-level work, and then go off and learn surfing, learn a language, you know, learn a hobby. And actually learning hobbies is really, really cool while you're traveling. I highly recommend learning like new languages as a way to kind of immerse yourself in different cultures. So I've learned Spanish, Portuguese, and I'm learning Russian. So, you know, I've lived in Colombia, spent time in Brazil, right now I'm in Ukraine, I'm going to Belarus. So being able to learn these languages, really, it adds a lot of fun to my life. So that's another little tip. So anyways, guys, cheers, and hopefully enjoy the video. Like and subscribe if you did.